Hi everyone, it's the 7th of January 2018 and I'm just going on. So today we're going to debunk the myth about positions in birth. Because Birthing Better was developed by fathers and mothers, that meant that every woman's birth, she was in a number of positions or postures at every single moment. As I said in the description, we're always in a position or a posture. For instance, I'm sitting down, which means that the top part of my body is not aligned from my hips to my feet. So the difference between a position, I'm sitting, and a posture is how am I sitting in it. This may not be the technical term, but it's how we use it when we think of childbirth. So what position are you in as you're watching this? And in that position, what posture are you in? So those are the two things that you need to focus on. So when we developed the Birthing Better skills in the early 1970s in the United States, we had every person who talked about their birth or every birth that unfolded, we began to become aware of the importance of positions. Now, when I gave birth in 1970, and this is where, there's a part of me that goes, well, I'm out of date, but the other part of me thinks, no, you really need to understand the changes that have occurred in my lifetime because we are where we are now because of what happened when I gave birth, and what was happening when I gave birth was based on what was happening prior to that. So we have this, not always this constant flow of history, but we have things that cause change, and we're in a change now. Because when I gave birth in 1970, as I said, there was Lamaze and Bradley and Grantley, Dick Reed, that was focused on skills only for people who were seeking to have non-medical births and pain-free labors. Well, not enough women achieved that, even those that wanted that, much less the vast majority of people who either didn't want it, couldn't have it, or were pressured not to have it, or due to the standards of care weren't going to have that. So skills were then seen as not working, and then everybody said, well, women should be able to have choices. But that's complicated as well, and I can do many debunking of choices ones. I've done some already and will again. But choices revolve around positions, because when I gave birth in 1970, we weren't allowed to get up and move around. So we were in bed, but we weren't constantly fetal monitored because those didn't exist at that point. And when we gave birth, our position and posture was lying on our back on an operating table, even if it was a vaginal birth, with our feet in stirrups. So then the positions changed. As choices came in, we were encouraged to get off our back and sit in a semi-recumbant position. And as I mentioned in yesterday's debunking the sacral pressure for back labor, when we got into a semi-recumbant position, we had more gravity because we were sitting more upright, but we were compressing the sacrum. So we closed off the area our baby needed to come through that in fact was quite open when we were lying on our back. That doesn't mean we should lie on our back, because it's not an either or. It means that we need to find positions and postures that keep us open if we're going to labor and have a vaginal birth, as well as not compress our baby's space in our container. So then we were encouraged to get up and move around. And Janet Velasquez's Active Birth was a book that was both based on yoga, which is good, and also based on this assumption, which was inaccurate, that women in traditional communities squatted. And in one of the other conversations that I had, I talked about the difference between how traditional women squat and how Western women or modern women are encouraged to squat. First of all, the majority of modern women don't squat as a habit. So we don't do much work squatting, whereas some cultures do. Some cultures don't, okay? So in Fiji, you would never really see women squatting when they are on the ground. They sit with their legs in front of them. And when they work, they bend over from the hips. So when you go into the Indonesian countries and into China, in some places, you see women squatting. And how do they squat? They squat with their knees in front of their body. Whereas in modern cultures, we're told to squat with our legs out to the side because we have a big belly. But what happens is that every posture changes our muscles. Our muscles change the posture, and so therefore our muscles are impacted by the posture. And our muscles, our internal tension in the soft tissue and muscles, impact our baby. So when we were told to get up and move around, it was as though just the concept of up and move around was going to solve the problems of childbirth, because it was perceived of as being all in a gravity plus. But when you look at the wall charts of positions, many of them are not gravity plus. And so we have a problem. We have several problems. One is we as women are passing on to other women what might work for us, but it might not work for the person we're passing it on to, because why it worked for us, we don't understand about our body and the relationship our baby has to it. So therefore, we're saying this worked, but it doesn't work for them because their baby and their body has a different relationship. We also are very confused about what upright means. And we're also confused as to what is the goal of the positions. Why are we moving around all the time? Nowadays, it's gone from being upright and just move around to frequently change positions. But that just disorients our baby, because every time we change positions, our baby has to respond to what is happening internally in our body with our muscles and our soft tissue. So let's try to debunk this myth and try to help you understand it. Now, I'm going to first talk about women who are going to have non-laboring cesareans. Okay, a lot of people just don't want to hear that. Okay, and then we're going to go down to those that had unplanned cesareans after they labored, and then we're going to go to women who labor and have vaginal birth. Whether you do it at home or in the hospital, whether there's a lot of medical care or not, it doesn't matter. It's your body, it's your position, it's your posture, and it's what you can do to help your baby be born. And that's the most important thing. So if you're having a non-laboring cesarean, it's your baby's birth. Birthing Better families had non-laboring cesareans. My daughter had 2 of them. Okay, we still thoroughly enjoyed learning the skills from 24 weeks onward. It brought us closer to our baby, closer to our partner, closer to the understanding that our pregnancy is leading towards the birth of our baby, and that we have the right, we have the urge, we have the desire to be as engaged in our baby's birth as any other woman. So we can thoroughly enjoy preparing our body for birth, because our body, like every other pregnant woman's body, is preparing to labor and have a vaginal birth, because the body doesn't know it's going to have a cesarean. The mind knows. So we have all the hormones active, we have everything active, everything is moving towards labor and a vaginal birth. Our mind knows that's not going to happen, but we can still thoroughly enjoy learning everything. And then when we're on the way to the hospital, we are in a position and a posture, and we can use our skills to keep softening and opening inside our pelvis and our body, and use the teamwork skills, the communication, and the deep touch relaxation skills with our partner. When we go to the hospital, we're asked to bend over to have the epidural, which can often be uncomfortable. We can use our breathing skills and still use our softening inside our body skills, because we are now in another position, another posture, and walking into the hospital was another position and another posture. So we have all these moment-to moments when we use our skills. Excuse me. Then when we move from having the epidural to lying down on the operating table, we can still create space for our baby in our bodies through what I've gone over again and again and again. One of the fundamental skills is when you breathe in, you expand inside your pelvis, and when you breathe out, you soften inside the pelvic clock, inside the bones of the pelvis. We're not upright, we're lying down. We are numb, we can't move things, but we can mentally project that breath. Why? Is it a waste of our time? It's your baby's birth. It's as simple as that. That's what Birthing Better families want to tell you. We used our skills to birth our baby. So now if you labor and then have an unplanned cesarean, you want to have thought about your postures and your positions very directly every time you have a contraction. Your body is always responding to the posture or the position that you're in. So let's just take upright, okay? So when we were told to walk, it is very upright, and our baby is aligned to the inside, the inlet of our pelvis. If our belly muscles are strong enough to keep our uterus aligned into the inlet of the pelvis. If we have side view, very big belly, and that means that our uterus is like this, that means our baby's in that uterus. And women who have had a number of babies often have very weak belly muscles, and their babies do not align well with the inlet of the pelvis. And the best solution for that is what traditional people did, which was to wrap their belly. That protects their belly muscles. They now have belly wraps. So if you have a very, very big belly in pregnancy, really consider wrapping your belly. If you don't do it at the end of pregnancy, consider doing it in labor. That acts as belly muscles to keep your baby aligned to the inlet of the pelvis, because your baby has to come through the inlet, come through the middle part of the pelvis, which is the narrowest part, and then come out the outlet, which we've talked to you about, that you can map and know what it is, because your positions have to do with the map of your pelvis. You want to know the map of your pelvis, how broad your pubic arch is, whether your sacrum is long or short or curved or flat or broad or narrow, what the distance between the bones you sit on, the distance between the inside of your pubic arch, your vagina to your tailbone. That shape is impacted by postures and positions. So every time you get into a position, if you're walking, for instance, you have weight-bearing muscles. So you want to just soften down there, and you can do that now. Just stand up, and as soon as you stand up, you can feel those weight-bearing muscles engage. So soften, because if you don't soften, you are unintentionally holding your baby up. So every time you take a step forward, your sacrum moves, and as you step forward, the way that your soft tissue and internal muscles function then impact your baby. So you go again and soften. Keep softening. You're always working with your baby's efforts to be born. If you then end up with an unplanned cesarean, then do what we said for the planned one, which is keep using your skills and at least use your breathing to expand inside your pelvis and soften inside. So if you labor and end up with a vaginal birth, and we're going to talk about walking, we're going to talk about leaning forward, we're going to talk about sitting on a ball, we're going to talk about squatting or asymmetrical squats, all sorts of positions. Your job is to find the positions that are the most open for you. If you change positions, your job is to make certain that the position you change into, that down there is as soft and as open as possible. And then you want to think about the alignment of your baby to the inlet and to your pelvis. So there's a lot of talking now about leaning forward. trust me, furniture in most birth rooms are really just crazy because we don't have a lot of options. We get dragged into doing things, into being in positions and postures our babies don't like because of the furniture. That's a really tough one, and I know that it's very tough. But the best thing to do is to understand this about reading. This is another skill about reading how your baby is responding to that posture or the position you're in. Every contraction has 5 phases, and your contraction starts, it goes up, it peaks, it comes down, it stops, it pauses in between, whether you have back labor or not. Every contraction does this if it's effective. Being effective is your baby's message to you that's saying to you, I like the position and posture you're in, you are not compressing my space, and you do not have tension inside you in a way that is impeding my ability to open you up and come down through and out. So those are the 3 things that you're reading in a contraction that has a bell-shaped curve. If a contraction goes up, goes up and flattens off, and women can feel that flattening. It doesn't peak, it just is, and then it goes off. That is your baby telling you you're either in a position or posture I don't like, or you're compressing my space, or you are bending my space in a way that I don't like, or you have tension inside in the pelvis that is preventing me from opening you up and coming down through and out. It's important for you to know. And when we think about, can women think in labor? Every woman thinks in labor. That's what she's thinking about. She's not thinking about other things really, except maybe I'm not doing this again, or don't touch me, or not as bad as I thought, or what am I sounding like, right? So the fact is, and the way that we know women think is that they can tell you their birth story detail by detail by detail. So we're going to debunk the myth at some point about this idea that you get out of your conscious brain into your primal brain, because that has been one of the unintended negative consequences in the message in childbirth since it got promoted. Okay, we should not get into our primal brain. Our primal brain is active. We should get into our human skilled brain and couple it to our primal brain. That is what we learned as Birthing Better Families. So when we lean forward, that's fine. If our baby doesn't have any trouble, if there's nothing, if our posture, our tension is fine, no compression, then our baby will continue to activate these progressive contractions. And how do we know the contractions are progressive? Because our labor progresses in a reasonable period of time. Women know when their labor stalls, and the most often cause of that is one is they haven't prepared their body to open up. They don't understand how to, and therefore every posture and position that they get into, in fact, is impeding their baby's body, but their baby from moving down through and out. One of the things that we see, I don't want this to go over 20 minutes, so I'm going to try to hurry up here. One of the things that we see is women who are having very progressive labors, who aren't skilled, who then get into positions and are encouraged to get into positions that ease off the labor because the pain is too intense. Then they stay in labor for hours and hours and hours and hours, because what they did was they got into a position that their baby can't open them up, come down through and out. So every posture, every position that you are in, you want to soften inside. Everyone, inside your pelvis, not your shoulders. Your baby's not coming out your shoulders. Everyone you want to soften in, whether every step you take, every way you move, every time you move one leg out, you want to change and soften inside. You want to constantly soften inside, and then you want to align the top part of your body or the bottom part of your body so that the two of them don't bend the space that backs off the contractions. So how do you know if you're in a position that your baby doesn't like besides the flatness? If you've been in a position the baby does like and you move, it takes 3 contractions for your baby to tell you whether they like it. So if you move into another posture or position, Just wait for 3 contractions and you will know whether your baby likes the position or the posture you're in. So I'm going to stop now because it's 20 minutes. Please share this video across your social media network. We'd love you to purchase the Birthing Better courses. They're online. And we'd love you to make comments on this post. And if there are myths that you would like me to debunk, please just make a list of them. And we also have a poll that we put out about 2 explanations about the Birthing Better skills, the 3 of us who have known the system for many, many years and been involved in it and used it ourselves. We're trying to simply explain it so you can simply explain it to other people. So see you again tomorrow, debunking another myth around childbirth. Bye-bye.